Good afternoon to our dear esteemed viewers. We are in our weekly community show hosted by Center for Constitutional Governance and Civic Space TV, and I'm your moderator, Martin. On the 12th of October 2022, we all woke up to social media trending with the word BLQ. Many did not know what that meant until tweets went out showing that BLQ was in fact a Ponzi scheme that fleeced over 5,000 people in Uganda of their money. Now, it has been estimated that the loss that this Ponzi scheme occasioned to Ugandans is to the tune of 60 billion shillings. BLQ is not the first Ponzi scheme that has graced Uganda. It's not the first, and it may not be the last. This issue of Ponzi schemes has been prevalent in the country for quite some time, and many people in Uganda have lost billions. To help us understand the dilemma that Ponzi schemes bring to Uganda, I'm joined by people who have knowledge in this area, have also been affected by these schemes, to discuss this so that we better understand it and forge a way forward so that we curb the number of victims that fall prey to the Ponzi schemes. Joining me today, we have Kizito, who is a lawyer and a legal practitioner with much knowledge in this area, but also an expert on capital markets and investments, among other things. We are also joined by Afande Ego Daniel, who works with the Uganda police and is of great knowledge in this area. Further, we are joined by Okello Innocent, who is a student teacher and who has seen and interacted with victims of this scheme. I'll ask each one of our panelists to introduce themselves, and then thereafter we shall kick off our conversation. I'll begin with you, Ego Daniel.
Oh, okay. I'm ASP Ego Daniel. I'm the OC operations for Unjeru division, the CPS. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Louis?
Yes, my name is Kizito Namwanja. I'm a lawyer, and like you rightly said, I have special interest in commercial laws, especially capital markets, structured financing, investments, and general commercial lawyering. I'm formerly with Pentagon Advocates.
Okay, thank you very much. And Okello Innocent?
Yes, as you rightly put it, my name is Okello Innocent Wach. I'm a teacher in the making, also a student of Gulu University. I draw particular interest in issues that affect the youth, and this being one of them, I am much more interested in having a discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we want to come to you, Louis. Help us understand what the dilemma with LBQ is. Give us the factual contextual background of BLQ.
All right. Okay, BLQ, I think has been around since 2019. Though even me personally, it got to my attention, I think, this year really. But at its very core, BLQ presented itself as a betting scheme. It says it's an investment company that deals in betting. So its structure was simple. It was reverse betting. It was not the kind of betting you do, normally people do, where if Madrid is playing Barcelona, you know the time and then you place a bet. No, these were fictional bets where you don't lose anything. Where if you lose, sometimes they compensate you, but again, at its core, like any Ponzi scheme, it rewarded recruiting. Like if you have people you're going to bring to bet, you can see their accounts, what they're up to. You can even bet for them. So like any classic Ponzi scheme, or even pyramid scheme, there's a difference between the two, but this was more of a Ponzi scheme, not a mixture also of a pyramid scheme. It's rewarded recruiting. You recruit people to bet, and you can see people who are under you, what they are betting, and in case they're not on, you could monitor and bet on their behalf. But around Independence Day or shortly thereafter, the accounts of those the accounts of people, the account holders in BLQ realized that they had problems withdrawing. Now, like any Ponzi scheme, they could not withdraw easily, and complaints swirled in the air about as to why their accounts and they cannot withdraw easily. So I think shortly after Independence, 2 days after the closed shop, and I think you saw the famous tweets they put with 2 fingers saying we are out.
Peace.
And yes, and the Gamings and Notaries body came out clearly and stated that, you know, these are not licensed individuals, not licensed persons. We don't have them. And but what is very hurting is that this BLQ got an aura of legitimacy from KCCA and URA. There are people I've talked to who came to me and they said, Louis, I have, and of course, there are people I couldn't help because they couldn't afford my legal services. The only thing I could tell them was, okay, the next time, watch out, there is this, you could go to police, but then the problem is ABCD, you may not have enough evidence to even sustain the charge. But what happened is people lost money, a lot of money, and the Gamings and Notaries came out. But what is hurting, like I was saying, is that they had a trading license from KCCA. It was really, really very, very hurting because now KCCA trading license gave them an aura of legitimacy. Because everyone who I talked to, who knew it was a Ponzi scheme, but went on to, in quotes, invest, he says, you know, this actually showed me the KCCA license. Yes, they don't have the Gamings and Notarying license, which is actually the official license in that area. But still, you know, they had the URA clearances, so it really made sense for me to invest. Now, I think moving forward, I think for any regulated business, before an area local government gives a trading license, they should ask, for instance, a bank cannot operate in an area in like Kampala, and you give them a trading license without
Louis,
like
before we go to the, you know, what should be done, which we shall certainly do. I want you to help us understand what the difference between a Ponzi scheme and a pyramid scheme is. And if you will, Afanda Daniel, this could also be something you'll help us explain later when your time to speak comes. But now, Louis, help us understand what these two mean.
There is a fine line between a Ponzi scheme and a pyramid scheme. The difference is there, but it's like any Ponzi scheme, it's complex. But let me get to it. At its heart, both of them rely on recruiting members. Now, in a legitimate, let me first explain a difference between a Ponzi scheme, pyramid scheme, and a legitimate investment scheme. Now, in a legitimate investment, it does not ideally rely on recruiting people. So at its very core, both Ponzi schemes and pyramid schemes rely on getting money from Peter to pay Paul without generating a profit. Like in a legitimate legitimate investment organization, because, for instance, regulated investment opportunities, like those that are licensed by Capital Markets Authority particularly, they rely on a product to generate money, and then that product once it generates money or some kind of service, then they distribute it amongst the so-called investors. But in a Ponzi scheme, and I'm going to get to the difference between the two. In a Ponzi scheme, they rely on for instance, Musiime, get me your friends, and then your friends will also invest. And then people who are high up the pyramid always get a cut of money from new recruits, but there is no underlying product that underpins that so-called investment. Now, the distinction here, in a Ponzi scheme, there is no underlying product per se. So it relies a lot on getting money from old people, from new people to pay off existing ones. Now, a Ponzi scheme relies a lot on what you would call multi-level marketing schemes. It relies a lot on marketing and getting people out there. It's again recruiting, but for it relies a lot on marketing. You remarket the thing, you take it here, people get money, they give it to you, and then as along the way, the people on the top of the pyramid who have started the damn thing, sorry to use the language, are skimming off money from people down here. But again, there's no legitimate product. And I think that's why I blame our policymakers. And I think Parliament will look, but we shall get into solutions later. In other countries, it's very easy to make a distinction between a multi-level marketing scheme, a legitimate multi-level marketing scheme, where people are marketing a product, and a Ponzi scheme. In that, in a multi-level marketing scheme, there is a product that generates 80% of the money from which they distribute. So people who are in Ponzi, anyone who is getting into a scheme of investment should ask, what is the product? And you will find that most of these Ponzi schemes and pyramid schemes, I hope the difference has been clear. I'm very sorry. Like I've told you, there's a fine line between the two. But if most of these people who rely on them, they actually hide the pyramid behind a product which is unsellable. Now, for instance, you'll find GNLD, they'll give you some medical products to sell. And most of these medical products may not even be licensed by the National Drug Authority, or even products that are not even licensed by the UNBS. So they give you a product to mask the fact that they're in a Ponzi. But at its core, they are telling you to recruit, to get money here, and then at the end of the day, that is what they do. So I won't even blame the law enforcement agencies, because it is very hard to bust these Ponzi schemes. It is very hard. Even in the US, by the time the Securities and Exchange Commission get to know these people, it's either has been exposed, or they have run away with your money, or even financial intelligence. So sometimes they can come and show you a legitimate product. So, but let me get back to your question. The difference between the two is that one relies on a lot of, it employs some kind of multi-level marketing within the members, and who are, and in that pyramid, the people at the top skim off money from people who are down here. But in a Ponzi scheme, they might not be multi-level marketing. Actually, you may find that the money that is the existing members are giving is being reinvested. In quotes, again, it's not invested because there's no product. But at its core, they get, in a Ponzi scheme, they get money from Peter to pay Paul. And then there is no product. And then it relies a lot on massive recruitment. And again, even those products are geared towards generating hype about the Ponzi scheme. It may not even be about the product. It's even when they hide the pyramid behind the product, you will find that the product is used to create hype for the Ponzi.
Thank you very much for that. Now, Daily Monitor has reported that as a result of this loss, many people have actually lost their lives. People have committed suicide as a result of this. And it has put the victims of these Ponzi schemes at 5,000 people. That is the victims whose money was stolen. This is not the first Ponzi scheme. The others had also quite had such large numbers of people. Now, I want to bring in a person who is closely associated with victims of this, and that is Okello, in whose area also this Ponzi scheme had reached. I want to get your understanding of this Ponzi scheme and how much effect it has had in the communities.
Oh, thank you so much.
The community where you are.
Yes, thank you so much. talking about the Ponzi schemes and the pyramid scheme, this has been something that has been so prevalent, and the definitions and the differences that have been given out by Lewis are actually very correct. That the Ponzi schemes depend on recruitment, and then there's actually no real investment. There's no product you're selling, and it's just scam. And so when this, for example, the BLQ, when BLQ came, there were a lot of students, friends of mine, family members who were inside. Even as I talk now, there is a friend who turned me into an enemy because I failed to be registered. He was always coming to my house and saying, Innocent, I have to register you. You are losing money. You can't. You see, of course, in the face of financial challenges, we'd expect that maybe I would give into it. But as a land person, I so much didn't like it, so I didn't fall prey of it. But he constant, even as I talk now, we are not in terms because he was over pressurizing me, and so it couldn't work out. So just yesterday, a local radio reported that a 40-year-old man in Onyama committed suicide. Why? Because BLQ locked his money amounting to 40 million shillings. And this has been a very, very sad thing to the people around. I personally went there yesterday late to that person's home in the evening, and it's just a very sad thing because the home they're talking about, this person there's nothing home. You barely see. It's a really very poor home, but this person had 40 million shillings on BLQ, and the money was locked just like that. When the account was checked, they found it was zero. And that is one case. Where I am at the university, there are students who had put in tuition. They had put tuition, half tuition, full tuition into this investment, and they really had real money. Like a classmate of mine with whom we were for school practice had 11 million in the account. And the day it was locked, this guy has never been the same. You see. So these are cases of many other people who really so much invested into the BLQ and other Ponzi schemes. And talking about BLQ came at a time when the students really they had money, and like my colleague mentioned, they had legitimacy, like they were registered, and so it worked in a way that you would put a bet. So with the bet, if you won, you would share the money with them. If you lost, you share the money with them. So initially there was nothing much that people were losing, and also they were gaining. And somebody told me, you see, for me, it is working for me. People say you don't trust online things, but it works for me. And so it kept like that. People went on to recruit family members, people went on to recruit friends, people went on to recruit lecturers, you see, on these Ponzi schemes. And these people come back to you and tell you this thing is working, I'm really getting it. And so the people who invested at the initial stages, they got in some returns. But you see, with the Ponzi scheme, they make you believe that there is wealth at the end, that you have to continue for you to get a very large amount of money or a very huge chunk of wealth. You have to continue investing. And that is why you'll see some people the money kept on adding. People were expecting 40 million shillings, expecting 5 million, to expecting 11. See, even the profession as a teacher, where I teach now, there are 4 teachers, male, who had invested in it. You see, who had invested in it, and when the thing closed, all their money also disappeared. So Ponzi scheme, they deal with unsuspecting people. These individuals don't suspect them of any fraud because, first of all, they try to show legitimacy, and then they promise high returns in a very short term. And so this is what is so much appealing to us, especially youth, that if I'm able to work and get this within a very short time, then it's anything to go by. And so they come very unscrupulously and fool people into believing that these things actually work. And people even show you that it actually works. Another thing that takes my interest is this is a pyramid scheme. It is called M Global Alliance for Global. Also something very common in Gulu, by the way. And these people always come. They are very appealing. You see, they dress in suits. They're very smart, and they carry expensive gadgets. And most times, how do I identify them when they come to talk to you? For them, what they consider as wealth or as a way of success is, I have a very posh car. I'm planning to buy land. These are the messages they bring to you, and these are the things which are very appealing to young people, and they easily get into them. So how do you know this is a Ponzi scheme? they show you that there is a need to get rich, that you're going to get rich in a very short term. And then it affects a lot. It affects a lot. If you look at now the BLQ that has passed, this thing has broken families, okay? People have committed suicide. People are living in total distress. There is real mental challenge around now. And people are living in bitterness. You see, like friendships have broken. Like I and my friend have broken from. We are not now friends because he kept on pressuring me into these things. So the Ponzi scheme, it really put people in a state of believing. The BLQ, for example, it really came with magnitude. We can look at, there are other things that came earlier on. Like if you talk about the Telex Free, which came in 2013, if you talk about the Ad Fast, which came in 2013, the e-Cairo, by the way, if you compare all these things to the BLQ this time around had a magnitude like no other because they proved to be legitimate. You see, they proved to be legitimate, and it worked for people. And that is why it has had, that's why Ugandans have lost over the billion shillings they're talking about, because the number of investors, the so-called investors on the BLQ has been bigger than any other Ponzi scheme that has ever come before. And so that is why the severity of the damage they have caused is felt. I mean, it's one thing. So to me, I think the effects of these Ponzi schemes mostly is going to be like this part of the region where I come from. I imagine it is more dangerous because like northern Uganda is a fragile region. As we all know, the region has been affected by war, and after war we had Ebola. After Ebola we had COVID-19, and the region has not healed from this. Now imagine after the COVID-19, there has now come the BLQ saga, which has affected many people. By the way, Lira has had hundreds of people who invested. And by the way, let us not be deceived that this thing affected all the young people. We have elders of 40 years old whose sons and daughters had recruited them into these things. Yeah. You see? So
thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And yes, indeed, I mean, there are even categories, VIP and VVIP. So exactly. Many people, including senior leaders and even politicians, have been reported to have been active interest rates. You know, I mean, 50% interest rates. Like you said, many people would say, "Well, this is a good gamble. Let me risk it." And you know, as a follow-up to what you've said, there have been a number of these. The most prominent that was also in the style of BLQ Football Club was Dunamis Coins Resources Limited, which was also registered, and it fleeced people of their money. People woke up and they didn't have money. There was Crown Football. There is Crown Football. I think that is still ongoing. There is UG Football. You've talked about e-Cairo. There was also something that wasn't per se a pyramid scheme, but it was again also a fraudulent scheme that was run in this style called Kowe, Caring for Orphans and Widows, which was also registered and collected money from people and fleeced them. All these have a common character. They actually usually have offices, but then when they're ending up, it's out of the blue that they disappear, even from their quarters, their offices, and no one sees them again. Which takes me now to Daniel. Daniel, who are these people that are behind these schemes, and where do they come from? At least from the security point of view. But you could also as well tell us what they are, what the Ponzi and pyramid schemes are. Over to you, Daniel.
I think you're hearing me. I hope I'm clear.
Yes.
Am I clear?
Yes, you are.
Okay, now, this issue is the pyramid and the Ponzi scheme. Now, the definition may, actually, it's the same thing. The pyramid is like, let's say, the same way Luis explained it. It's a Ponzi scheme as people, they recruit. They give that false hope. There's a false hope that you're going to what? To invest, you're going to get more money and whatever. So now that's how people come in, and then they assume we are investors. They make you look like a partner, that false partnership thing. Now, the more you recruit, they say you recruit, you get in, you grow in hierarchy. Now, when someone thinks I'm growing in hierarchy, the people you've recruited, you assume they're under you. So that means more, it's a promise of more income for you and all that. I think even GNLD had something similar to that. But now, these Ponzi schemes, these legitimate businesses and all that, these things, it looks, you see, it's a little sophisticated for Ugandans to pull off. Because most of them, they're headed now like this, the cryptocurrency issue. That one was headed by Brazil. It was from Brazil, by the way. The boys were heading, young boys between 19 and 21 years of age. Those ones, they took, I think, about 4 million with the cryptocurrency. I think there was one called Philip, because now about a month ago, we intercepted, there's some information intercepted from one of these people. I think he had Arafat, he had the Philips, and the boy was called Philip, actually,
That's
19 years old.
That is Daniel, I mean it.
Yeah.
Daniel, I mean it. Is that $4 million US?
Yeah, the cryptocurrency, they took 4 million.
You said they went out with 4
this issue of the cryptocurrency. They took about 12 billion. Yeah, it was about 12 billion. I think, remember the issue of the cryptocurrency, and they're running it. The scheme was actually, they had about 4 Ugandans in it, but the rest were controlling. There were 3 Brazilians. You see? So, and young boys, even the Ugandan boys, they're very young boys. The Arafats, they're young boys. About, I think, if you give or take, they had about 21 years, the oldest. You see? So these ones, the other people, the foreigners, now their countries are more advanced than us. I think the US schemes and the South Africans and whatnot. So at the end of the day, these people put in that idea and then they come. And the problem is they register, anyone is allowed to register a company. They register companies, they may register something false, then the operation changes. You see? So the companies be registered fully because registration is free. Even right now, if you want anything, you just go and register the bureau. You go fill in the basic, the criteria, I think the necessities, they are basic. You see? So now that's what happens with the thing. So when they fleece Ugandans, they go away. And shockingly, again, they come back. You'll not be surprised if BLQ is the same group. Because that boy went, they disappeared for about a month. Then again, they came back. Now the time we were coming back, I think it was about 2 months ago. Now that's when we wanted to intercept the person. Because the coordinate called from Dubai, we saw the message coming back again, opening a new scheme, different from the cryptocurrency. So they keep coming back, the same group rotating, and they keep improving. So it rotates around the same people. But see, the problem comes, it's very, very hard. Now, like police, you can't penetrate those groups. Because for us to go somewhere, there must be a complaint. Now, where there's no complaint, you have your hands are tied. You cannot just go and raid somebody when they have not complained. Then there's a scheme, I think it's here in Mukono. It's starting, but I think it's going to be a scheme because it's about chicken. They have a chicken farm. Now, they say people invest in it, and you invest like shareholders. So it's the more money you put, at the end of 3 months, they're giving, I think, depending if you put 2 million and above, it's 1 point something. So people think they're buying shares, which is normal. People buy shares usually in other companies. So they kind of make it look like it's like how you go to Uganda place and buy shares. That's why it looks like here. So at the end of the day, it's going to, even police officers, I have colleagues who have gone, senior officers more than me, they have also fallen for the same schemes. So these schemes are properly planned, and it's the same people, it's rotating around the same group. So this BLQ, I'm not so certain about it because it was up country mainly. It hit Lira a lot. I'm from Lira generally, that's where my village is. But half the people I know have been hit. Serious people, police officers there, I can't mention who, I can't character assassinate, but have been hit. So this is not just a problem of here, Uganda, because it covers across, they're sweeping all over Africa. Even because it's the, you see, so it's not, it's a, I don't really know the proof, because now you see, us getting them, no, police, you cannot follow something. Where is the proof? It's hard to prove. Because now they fleece and they run. Now when they disappear, even if you get them, what are you going to charge somebody with? Because currently that is fraud. But fraud, a company could have just gone bankrupt, could have just gone. So the technicalities are really, 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 really in there. And we have never actually interfaced where you get somebody. It's probably like you've arrested the suspect, and it's of that nature. The people who get the scheme, they're always online, and it's usually the WhatsApp and all that. You never find somebody physical, because the physical bit comes later. The first meeting, that's when you see them. First meeting, people come. For young boys, they say we are investors. This is, and that is it. They recruit Ugandans, you put locals, and locals ones who run the scheme. So even if you pick a local who has also been fleeced. Are you seeing? So now that's how it works. So it's really, really, really a process, and it's going to take us time to get down to this. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for Daniel for that context. It helps a lot. And going to you, Louis, this begs a question of how hard is it to regulate this area? We've heard from Daniel, who says it's actually hard because it's hard to trace. These are people who are hard to trace. In any case, they are not even within the jurisdiction of Uganda. You know, at the point they are operating, they're just, you know, virtual. And so how easy or how hard is it to regulate this? And what is the role of the regulators? I mean, to mention the list, what is the position of the law on this?
All right. Thank you, Musiime. World over, and everyone knows this, world over, Ponzi schemes and pyramid schemes are illegal. There are express laws. There are rules around Ponzi schemes in a majority of the community of nations, the same. But in Uganda, the law is, we don't rely on an explicit consumer protection law or criminal laws on Ponzi schemes. Like, our laws are entirely silent. So even when you go to the regulator, now the regulator ideally in this area is supposed to be Capital Markets Authority, who their theme is to protect your investments. But then now, like you have seen with GNLD, some of these Ponzi schemes come and mask their pyramids behind a product. And the product could be crypto, the product could be medicine, the product could be healthcare products, the product could be now, like you saw with nutrition. Like, there's a Ponzi scheme here which I think I went to Capital Markets Authority and the National Drug Authority telling them about aging nutrition. When we got there, as we were getting there, they arrested the people, but they were not the main people behind the scheme. They were speaking to their contacts in Malaysia behind anonymity. So the law around Ponzi schemes in Uganda is silent. There is no, like I told you initially, if you look at the South African Consumer Protection Law, it has clauses dealing with Ponzi schemes and legitimate multi-level marketing businesses. And in those provisions, there's a provision that says that in a legitimate multi-level marketing scheme, there should be a product that generates majority of that money, which is distributed to the investors. Now, when you go to Capital Markets Authority to complain, they will tell you they're not licensed individuals. The best we can give you is an education. When you go to, if at all the Ponzi scheme is masking itself behind a betting company which is not licensed, the Gamings and Lottery, the Gamings Board will still tell you these are not licensed persons. When you go to police to go and charge, in case you have someone who's marketing a Ponzi scheme and you want to go in the criminal law route, they normally get an offense. A charge is normally getting money under false pretenses. That is the charge they put on the charge sheet. But the problem with that offense, you know, as a lawyer, you also know that to sustain a charge, more so of a criminal nature, you are supposed to prove all the special ingredients of that offense. Now, if someone is running a Ponzi scheme and you are on the charge sheet, you have getting money under false pretenses, you will fail to sustain the charge and the person will subsequently get bail and you run away. Now, all the dangers of not having a law that explicitly, I know it is hard to get to these schemes and it is hard to rely on regulators to bust them before they get to us. But even at the very core, we don't have a law that threatens these people away. Now, from a regulatory perspective, I don't even think Ponzi schemes are regulatable because they are illegal. From the very outset, a Ponzi scheme is bound to fail. It is structured in such a way that only the people who perpetrate the scheme benefit. Because you cannot sustain, let me give an example. There was a Ponzi scheme and a pyramid scheme called Crowd One in South Africa. Crowd One was very sophisticated in that they designed a series of products, gaming products, marketing products. They structured themselves as a marketing scheme. But they were not relying on the marketing because most of the products they're putting there are just logos. There's no product behind them. But if you look at what they were doing, they relied a lot on recruiting people, then getting money from the new people, to pay off the existing investors in courts. When it got to the Financial Conduct Authority of the South Africans, it was already late. People had lost money, they had closed shop. So I think Ponzi schemes, fighting them, we have to go two routes. Number one, awareness, which is not very easy, but the regulators should put out regulatory alerts that these are the licensed people, these are the regulated fund managers. CMA does, Capital Markets Authority does that on a regular basis. I think every quarter they put, if you're going to invest in a Ponzi scheme and it is masking itself as a betting company, you have to ask for that license. That if you're a betting company, you want to have the license from the Gaming and Lotteries Commission or the Gaming Board. Why? If it is a drug that they're selling you certain drugs, you have to find out if they are specialized regulators in certain areas. And you realize that most of these Ponzi schemes that mask a product behind the scheme, behind the product, they don't have the licenses for those specialized regulators. So to get back to your question, how to regulate them, how hard is it? Is that it is hard. These people sit down and engineer a scheme. Even for, I know lawyers who have lost money in Ponzi schemes. These are sophisticated people who sit down and they know the laws. They know that they have a business acumen. Actually, if you look in the United States, there was a Ponzi scheme that went on for 60 years. Bernie Madoff was at some point was him as an individual. He was a regulated investment manager who had a license from the Securities and Exchange Commission in the United States. He was a Jew who had trust amongst a community. And it goes back to what I was trying to tell you again. The people who recruit you into these schemes rely on trust. Now, you cannot rely on trust alone to invest. That's a very big mistake. You never rely on trust alone. That's why I don't like people get financial advice from churches. Actually, Kowe and I think even this BLQ, you had pastors who were requesting individuals to invest. Now, you never get investment. Churches have never been part of have never been licensed or have never been trained to give investment advice. But you find that churches, some pastors go that route because these Ponzi schemes rely on trust. Now, Bernie Madoff, like I was telling you, was a trusted individual. But the Ponzi scheme went on for 60 years and it was busted. You see, at the end of the day, it's unsustainable. You can never keep on recruiting more people to pay off existing ones. At some point, the existing people get tired. And the easiest way a Ponzi scheme fails is when existing investors pull out abruptly. Because then they fail to raise money to pay off the already existing ones. All ones they fail to recruit. Because if I recruit Louis, I have to recruit 2 people to get money if I'm a beginner. Then the 2 people I've recruited, each has to recruit 4 people for that other person to get money. Then if the 4 people recruit, they have to recruit 10 people. So it's a pyramid. It goes on increasing and you are never at the top of the pyramid. So I can't blame the regulators, really. I can't blame the police. I can't blame Capital Markets Authority. I can't blame the Gaming and Lotteries Commission. I cannot blame the National Drug Authority. I can't blame UCC. I can't blame NITA. Because even in advanced nations, it is hard to get. The only problem we have in Uganda is recovery. Because in the US and South Africa, because those economies are a little bit sophisticated, they can trace the money and freeze, even Financial Intelligence Authority. But one thing I think the biggest advice I can give to people, once you sense a Ponzi scheme, just report it to Financial Intelligence Authority. Just report. If you are an early investor in a Ponzi scheme, and you also want, because if I want to invest in the Ponzi scheme, I cannot keep my money there for years and months. No. Smart people normally keep on withdrawing their money in bits. That's what I know. So if you sense that you're in a Ponzi scheme and you want to withdraw, once you withdraw your money and you're sure this thing is going to collapse, you silently put in a request to both 2 institutions, Financial Intelligence Authority and Capital Markets Authority. What will Financial Intelligence Authority do? Financial Intelligence Authority will investigate these people and they have powers to freeze accounts and also help police do an investigation. Much as I have a firm belief that there's no charge you put on the charge sheet that will put away a Ponzi schemer forever. Financial Intelligence Authority can at least help freeze and investigate. So even these people's operations will be put on a hold. But again, it is not so easy for an individual to go to Financial Intelligence Authority and sense it's a Ponzi scheme. But we should get those people who are smart enough to tell the Financial Intelligence Authority early enough.
Thank you, Louis, for that insight. I've seen a series of coordination emails, and letters, circulars from these regulators, communicating to each other, alerting each other of these Ponzi schemes. And the Gaming and Lotteries Board, I think it's the Lotteries and Gaming Board, has issued a statement, narrating how they've been following up this this matter. But what is clear is that the regulators get to know of these schemes at the tail end, when they have collected enough, when they are almost, running away. At times, even, they run away, and then the regulators, get to go backwards to trace. And the Gaming Board wrote, in fact, to UCC, they wrote to Bank of Uganda in the matter of the BLQ, to have any systems that are used, frozen, where the money is X detection. And indeed, also contacted MTN, Airtel, to try and block, the numbers that were being used. It's hard, because it seems these fraudsters work way ahead of time, even more than us. So it's a bit of a murky area, and indeed I agree. But I think all regulators can work together to curb this, because we have URSB, which is also actually a regulator for companies, and like we've seen, most of these companies are usually they're usually registered companies actually in Uganda. Of course, the directors at times are hard to trace, but they're usually registered in Uganda. I think they also use Ugandan directors, like Daniel said, who are usually also victims. So it's hard to trace. You end up confronting a victim. You're a victim, also going to a victim who is as if the director, but he's not the real person who has the money. So I think there's need for regulators to closely work together when it comes to this. And since we have a payments law, that could help us detect many of these things earlier. I want to come to you, Innocent, and to tell us how the community where you are is coping with this, and how it's being addressed. You've said Lira and Lango, Acholi, sub-regions are much affected. So we want to hear from you what the communities are doing to curb this.
Yeah, thank you. Apparently, there is a lot that is going on. Many of the religious people down are trying so much to do a little bit of guidance and counseling, because people are finding it very difficult to deal with this loss. People are not reporting to their gardens to work anymore, and there is just a lot of trauma. So what is happening apparently is the issue of guidance and counseling is trying to go on. Like the university, we have set up a guidance and the counseling office for children who have been affected, for students who have been affected, to go and have a talk with experts. And another thing that is happening is that people are trying to really so much register that the losses they have made, and actually the police is getting involved in this, and we are trying to do a little bit of a crackdown on some of the Ponzi schemes that are still existing. Like we closing offices, even though they have licenses. Police are trying to close down some of those places where youth are gathered, very many, if they don't have any product they are selling. Of course, that a little bit faces a challenge because, for example, the Alliance for Global, they're able to show us their license and say, we have a license of operating. And so this is something that's legitimate. So, but basically what they're trying to do is to make sure they close shop. And that is what is happening apparently. But most of what is happening is just the guidance and counseling sessions that are taking place. And we try to engage people in sensitization. We try to talk to them and let them know that you really, it's hard to get rich quick. And so that in case things like this appear, which I know they will reappear in the future. So the intention is to try to discourage them from avoiding such scams so that they don't be faced with such challenges in the future. And so it's a very terrible thing. It's a very hard thing to deal with, to talk to people because people are giving up. Like I told you, the number of suicide cases is increasing. We encouraging families so much to try to keep their children with them and to monitor them, because now when you see young people moving anyhow, people are talking on the road as they're walking. You just know a lot of things are going on in their minds. So those are the things that are happening now, especially in Gulu. It is just the guidance and counseling session now. That's what's happening in Gulu to really deal with the effects of what has happened and to help the community to cope up with the problem already created and to avoid further challenges, like to reducing the suicide cases that are bound to really, by the way, be higher if guidance is not taken so seriously. So those are some of the few strategies that are being employed. And of course, we are trying
Innocent, thank you for that. Okay, I want to thank you, Innocent, for that. I want to come back to Daniel. I mean, like we said, this keeps on going on and on. And this is to Louis. It's interesting how these people, all these schemes, have mastered how to navigate around our legal systems. For example, Co even went to court, suspended. They were suspended by the regulator, and they went to court and actually won at the first instance. But before the appeal of the regulator could be disposed of and had and disposed of, these people closed shop, and people's money also went missing like that. So you see people who are at times seemingly genuine, with genuine concerns. For example, Kowe, who is caring for orphans and widows. Then there are others that you said that brought health products. So how easy detect that this is not a genuine Ponzi scheme, this is not a genuine investment, and this is a Ponzi scheme? How can someone tell when many of them have genuine concerns and they even follow the due process of the law? Even when they get through challenges, they even legitimately go to court. How would you tell that such a person is a fraudster?
Martin, I'll again go back to what I was saying. You see, in investments, we don't only rely on trust to place your money somewhere. Once you see that they are offering you consistent, unrealistic returns, then you should ask the question, why is this person giving me 40% return on investment? In this economy, and anywhere in the world, you cannot, even in the stock market, even when you're going to invest in real estate, even when you're going to do a normal business, like a lawyer, you won't have clients every day, really. It's kind of very impossible. every day, 365 days of the year. It's not kind of impossible. So going back to your question, how do they navigate around our legal system? I think we have not built enough capacity. Okay, there are people in the regulators who know there are Ponzi schemes, but we have not built enough capacity within the population to support a Ponzi scheme. And going to court and even getting a judgment in their favor in the court of first instance, again, not all judges will understand and make a distinction between a legitimate investment and a Ponzi scheme and a pyramid scheme. It's very hard. But going back to your question and why they are navigating around our laws, we need to call, and I think civil society should join hands with private investment managers, lawyers, licensed persons, to strengthen the law against Ponzi schemes. Because let me give you an example. In the market, we have unit trusts. We even have an ETF. We have shares. We have legitimate investment opportunities in the capital markets. But people are not taking advantage of them because they are boring. You know, these are things you have to understand, and then they give you very small, like the other day MTN gave out dividends. But even MTN share price tanked. Of course, the dividends were there, but they're not as attractive as the kind of opportunities they'll give you with COE or with GNLD or with Alliance Aim Global or with the BLQ. So once I think what we should do, and I don't know, the problem is we lack civil society in the capital markets. There's no civil society I know that is creating awareness in the capital markets. It's not there. I know Unwanted Witness is doing a good job with digital rights. Maybe Unwanted Witness could help us in the area of Ponzi schemes leveraging technology, data protection, but they're specialists in data protection. There's no civil society in political arena. I think Center for Constitutional Governance is majorly in the political arena. But I have not seen any civil society that puts the regulators on their toes, that is in the capital markets. Actually, I am the only one I think who can come out and say I'm shouting with Capital Markets Authority all the time. I can't say I'm boasting, but really that's the truth. But to get to the heart of it, we need to, and I think Parliament last year, in 2018, when this issue was all over the place, I think Honorable Bahati, one coin came out, the members of Parliament who had lost money, even an Army General, he came out and asked Parliament to ban Ponzi schemes. I don't know where that discussion ended. It was 2018. Now we have another Ponzi scheme that has different gains over 60 billion. The Parliament hasn't come out very strongly. And again, because I fought the civil society, we don't have people who have put the legislators on their toes consistently, the way you see in the political arena, the Computer Misuse Act. And again, normally MasterCard, and this is again another solution maybe that should be looked into. MasterCard cannot, they scrutinize businesses, they enter partnerships with in terms of payouts and payments. For instance, if you don't have a license, if you want to do something in the area of capital markets like brokering and brokerage and investment advice, and you want a partnership with MasterCard to help receive money and cash out, they scrutinize that license. Now, the solution we should give to the people in Uganda is they should look out for the MTN mobile money and the payment services operators and payment service providers like MTN, Cheaper Cash, Airtel. They should be in position to help scrutinize the documentation of these Ponzi schemes or businesses before they allow them to be hosted or to allow them to leverage their payment system or aggregator platforms. But it looks like they also lack it in that area. So my best guess is that BLQ has left, but we are going to have a new Ponzi scheme morphing into something. And you may find that the same individuals who come up with something new, something revolutionary that I have never seen, but at its core, it's a Ponzi scheme. So as I conclude on your question, I think we should push for consumer protection laws that explicitly ban Ponzi schemes. They might not solve the problem, but at least they show that Uganda is a no-go area. For instance, if you look in the area of adoptions, because now the Children's Act was amended, now getting an adoption order in Uganda is not as easy as it used to be. So even people are trafficking children know that getting a court order for an adoption, a foreigner, it's not as easy. So we need a law that works on the psychology of the Ponzi scheme. So if they've come up with a Ponzi scheme, it is out of this world. It is something that, but not these basic Ponzi schemes where on a low level, someone can fall prey and then they get away with it. And then even they go to courts and get judgments in their favor. Financial Intelligence Authority, I think, should play a bigger role. But again, Financial Intelligence Authority is an intelligence authority, the way you hear it. It works on investigating, getting intelligence, and they're helping sister agencies. And recently, there is something that they did in line with money laundering. Now, the Companies Act was amended for companies that are being registered. Now you need to file something called a beneficial ownership form. You need to show that the directors and the shareholders in this company are the real people behind the company. Because you'll find, like in Uganda, someone opens up a company and it's a subsidiary of a foreign company. We never used to know who the directors in the foreign company were before they amended this law. But now with the introduction of the beneficial ownership form in the Companies Act, it means that if there is a company that is a majority shareholder in a Ugandan entity that is registered, they should file a beneficial ownership form to show us who the individuals behind this company are, who are owning shares in this Ugandan entity. Do they call the shots? So, but the advice I can give to everyone is watch out for consistent returns and high returns that are promising no risk, and look out for the element of consistent recruitment, that for you to get money, you have to get 3 other people and then they're under you. Look out for that. And then don't base your entire investments on trust. You cannot invest because you trust someone has told you so. No, you have to go to a licensed financial advisor, a licensed person, either but investments is mainly the Capital Markets Authority, really. Then they tell you whether it's a legitimate investment or not. The problem with Ugandans, we don't want to pay professionals. And then when you crash, people cry so hard, and even when you go to police won't help you. Well, like I said, I don't think in our criminal and penal laws, there is a charge you can sustain successfully against a Ponzi scheme. It's not there. The best it can come to is acquiring or getting money under false pretenses, whose ingredients you might not prove to the latter. And even if you cannot prove a case and someone has a chance of succeeding as a criminal, he will get bail. When he gets bail, he becomes a flight risk. So Musiime, basically, that's it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you very much for this conversation, and we've come to the end of it. It's panelists have said we need much awareness about this, but also it also begs how we handle data. There is a data issue. I must say I've also seen myself being added to Instagram channels, being sent invites and added to Telegram channels. And because we know Ponzi schemes use Telegram a lot because of how hard it is for security and intelligence people to track communication on Telegram. I've also been sent a number of those links, and I've been added to channels that I do not know of. So we have to be protective of our data, where we put our mobile number, where we on our social media. We should guard our accounts to see that we do not expose ourselves to risks, like this, where our personal data is going to be used for scheming and to fleece us of our money. It's also important to do education and sensitization about these Ponzi schemes, and very importantly, we have to address, the issue of poverty that takes many people into these quick money schemes, where people think that they'll get money so fast, and we should know that it's never about you of that scheme. But also importantly, many of these Ponzi schemes go through easy targets like football. or soccer, sports, and we know many youthful people in Uganda, even older people, love gamings, as these are games, you are betting on games, yet in real sense, you are not going to gain, but you are rather losing your money. And then for older people, it is usually presented as health benefits. You think you're buying, products that are good for your health and all that, but yet you are being fleeced. We thank Lewis, we thank Ego Daniel, we thank Innocent Okello for being a part of this show. And we shall honestly continue having follow-up discussions on this particular issue, because as we know, Ponzi schemes have not just come to Uganda now with big BLQ. They have been there before. BLQ has left, but who knows, it may morph into another scheme. I have been your moderator, Martin, and this show is always hosted by Center for Constitutional Governance and Civic Space TV. I thank you and wish all of you a blessed week.